Hello and welcome back to the World Championship in Through the Ages. After my win in the last two-player game against PV4, I have now quite a nice position in the standings. I have 4 games finished in 18 points, and if I should just manage to score some more points, then I think I should have very good chances to advance to the next stage. The next game that we are seeing today is a 3-player game against Angor and PV4. Out of my opponents, Angor has probably the best position because he has only 5 games finished and has 11 points. PV4 also has 11 points, but he has already 7 games finished, which means that the next game that we are seeing today is actually already his last game. And if he still wants to advance to the next stage, then he really needs to win this game, otherwise he will very likely will be eliminated. And now without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. In this game I am in the second position, and first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that in H3 there's quite some lab and science synergy. There's Bill Gates, Sid Meier, Einstein, Marie Curie, also the Internet, the Manhattan Project and the space flight. We also have one theater leader with Chaplin, but there's no Hollywood, there's Mandela, there's also Churchill, no Gandhi. In H2 we have some culture leaders with Shakespeare, Darwin and Gaudi, but no Bach. We have some military action leaders with Napoleon, Catherine and Robespierre. James Cook is there, but no Suez Canal. There is the ocean liner service, but no Maria. There's the railroad, but no James Watt. Harvard College is there as well. In H1 we have one military action leader with Joan of Arc. Nostradamus and Genghis Khan can also help with the strength. We have both of the lab and printing press leaders with Gutenberg and Leonardo. And then there's also Michelangelo together with St. Peter's Basilica and Machu Picchu. Maybe that could be something. And Columbus is there as well. Then the universities and Silk Road are there as well as H1 wonders. And Angor is in the first position, and he just takes Confucius, which I think should be a good decision. He's probably the best out of those 3 leaders that he can take. And then at my turn I will take this urban growth and one of the other leaders. I don't think it's best to just take Moses. I don't have the option to take one of those wonders. And I could potentially think about Caesar, maybe as a counter to Confucius, but he's just a little bit very uncertain what you get out of him. And there is no Suez Canal in the game, so maybe trying to go for a bit of colonization with him maybe doesn't have a big payoff at the end. And I also don't know if maybe one of my opponents will get a Colossus, so I think just going for Aristotle is better here. And then I just can maybe hopefully get some nice science out of him. PV4 will just take the Stonehenge, wants to make sure that he gets this wonder, otherwise he could have maybe only just taken a leader and a yellow card. And there are also not that many very strong wonders that could come off the deck, no pyramids, no library, so maybe just having the Stonehenge for certain is not bad. Now it's Angor's turn, he goes for Confucius, takes the urban growth. There's no wonder available for him for 1 civil action, so he doesn't want to pay 2 for the Colosseum, just goes for Confucius, builds a mine, increases population and takes this urban growth. He also lets the Colosseum stay on 2 civil actions for me. I will go for Aristotle. I will build the lab first. I also won't grab any of those HA wonders, and with having Aristotle, with having a leader that scores some additional science, I think it can be definitely nice to maybe just skip the HA wonder if there's nothing that is interesting enough for me. I could maybe still take the Colossus at the next turn, but there's no Suez Canal, and maybe I rather want to leave myself open to go for Universitas, Silk Road, or maybe just hope to get iron, alchemy going. And and because of that I also build a lab first. If I should skip my HA wonder, then maybe the additional science will be more valuable than the additional resources that I could get from the urban growth if I would start with building the mine now. And then I will increase my population and take this frugality. That just will give me 1 food, and also with taking a card from the discard spot and make it that Cleopatra stays in 2 civil actions for PV4. And I think if she would be available for 1, then maybe she would be the leader that he wants to go for, but now she will only be available for 2 civil actions for him. Could maybe also think about a stockpile if I should get an early H1 wonder or something like that, then the additional resource could maybe be useful, but it requires an additional civil action, and so I just rather went for the frugality. I draw a tactic already, the medieval army, so it could be quite nice to get a copy of Knights, and I also draw the Naval Trade Agreement Pact. PV4 is not willing to pay an additional civil action for Cleopatra and will just go for Alex. Then it's Angor's turn. He seeds and opens the development of civil life. He will use that actually to build a 4th mine, which is interesting, but I think he also did this in some of the other games, going for 4 bronze mines relatively early, so maybe that's a little bit of his of his play style and the way how he likes to play. And then he, thanks to it being so cheap with the development of Civil Life to build his mine, can also already build a stage of the Colosseum, takes the knights, and maybe if he gets some additional food, can relatively soon then build a second lab as well. And he has a happy face from the Colosseum, and with that maybe he can support this fourth mine. I can't really do a lot with my politics phase, so I just offered a naval trade agreement to Angor. Maybe with having Confucius, maybe if he has drawn some colonies, he has already seeded one, or maybe wants to seed one, and maybe there's a chance that he would accept it and I could get some additional blue tokens, but he rejects this pact. And then I think I really want to take this copy of Knights. It's already the second copy. I have the medieval army tactics, so I think that's a must take for me here. And that means also that both of the copies of Knights are already taken now. Then I have 2 civil actions left, and I will just increase my population and take the reserves. I could still go for the Colossus, but I just think the Colossus is not that great without a Suez Canal in the game, and also without having a leader maybe that synergizes with it. And so I rather want to leave myself open. It would be really great if there's an early Silk Road or Universitas. There's also the Meiji Castle already coming down the road, but I don't think that's that strong as an early wonder. So no, I just take the reserves. Maybe that can help me to get an additional population. Maybe that can help me to get some additional resources in case there is an early Universitas. So no, that was the card that I will take at the end. I draw 2 cards, the Barbarians and the Pestilence. PV4 will use Alex immediately, and he also gets a replacement leader immediately with Joan of Arc, elects her, and then increases his population. Angor seeds, and the development of warfare is revealed, but he doesn't have a free population. He will finish the Colosseum this turn, and he will take the alchemy. Maybe he doesn't want to leave the alchemy for me, especially not together with Leonardo. And like this, I mean, he can maybe build an alchemy directly at some point with not having committed to the second lab yet. Now it's my turn, and I will seed this turn the Barbarians without having culture production at the moment. I was hoping that I won't get hit by that, and I maybe also won't seed that much at the following turns, and can maybe like this prepare for that. And this turn I just wanted to seed because some developments I think could maybe make my turn a little bit better. Some food would allow me to increase my population, for example, and so I just wanted to seed and see if maybe something helpful is revealed. And as actually the development of religion is revealed. Before that, I was thinking about if I should take the development of warfare, but now with the development of religion being revealed, I will just take the religion, because with having the medieval army tactic, maybe I don't really need a second warrior, maybe just 1 warrior and 1 knight will be enough for a while, and so it didn't feel too great to take the warrior, but just skipping it also didn't feel too great, so just now being able to take the religion is maybe also not bad. And then as you can see, I take the printing press with Aristotle. And no, the printing press and Leonardo is available for me. Of course, I already have 2 labs, so the printing press is maybe not ideal. But no, I still think it can be a nice combination with Leonardo. And also when we take a look at the H2 leaders again, I think there are quite some nice printing press leaders in H2 with Shakespeare, Darwin, Anthony Gaudi. I mean, Darwin is maybe not that great with already having a religion now, but maybe I could still make him work. But all of those leaders could be quite interesting with having printing presses. I get Leonardo, and maybe I will manage to support 1 additional worker being in printing presses, and then I already would have 4 science production with Leonardo. Also, if I don't take any of those cards, then Leonardo would not be discarded on PV4's turn, and Angor could maybe still take him. That's something I definitely wanted to prevent, him getting an early Leonardo. And no, so I take the printing press. I will also take Leonardo. I could have also thought about maybe taking printing press and then monarchy, and then I would have 8 science and go for the monarchy, but then I have problems to get out of corruption, so I don't think that is the way to go, but maybe it could also be considered. After having done those 2 civil actions, I still need a way to get out of corruption, and there were 2 main lines that I considered. Either I can just take the Magic Castle and build the first step to get out of corruption, or I can play the reserves of food and increase my population to get out of corruption. And I think it was a relatively close decision. As I said, the Magic Castle is maybe not that great as the first one. On the other hand, if I maybe go for printing presses and then an H2 culture leader, then having the Magic Castle to defend myself could actually be quite useful. It's maybe not my general my playstyle that I go for. I rather try to go for big economy, but maybe in 3-player games it can also be maybe nice sometimes to just go for a little bit of a culture setup, and then the Magic Castle could help me maybe defend this culture setup. But I also was looking at my next turn, and I came to the conclusion that I like my next turn more if I play the reserves now for food and increase my population already. At the next turn I could still have some corruption issues, because I am, for example, if I go for printing press and invest 3 resources, I have still corruption and I have only 2 food, so I can't increase my population. But I was hoping that the 2 developments will be revealed before my next turn. If only one is revealed before my turn, and I think one will be revealed for certain with Angor having Confucius, then I can maybe just also push to make it happen. And then I was just hoping that a development will be revealed that gives me additional food or population. There's still development of settlement, agriculture, trade routes, markets, planning. So I thought that is a relatively good chance that in one of those 2 last developments there is a development that will give me an additional population or additional food. And now that I have done those actions, I could then, if I should get an additional population or additional food at the next turn, could maybe at the next turn elect Leonardo, develop printing press, develop knights, build 1 printing press, build 1 knight with the additional population, and if I only get food, then I could with the last civil action increase my population. So I could build a knight, get the medieval army tactic, and with that prepare for the event deck that will be flipped very soon, and I would also get the printing press going. If I go for the Magic Castle, then I could maybe get a printing press going, but I would not be able to get knights and printing press going. So, so that is why I liked this play more, with playing reserves for food and increasing my population, so that I hopefully have a chance to maybe prepare my military as well as already getting 1 printing press going at the next turn. I think that could be quite nice. And but for that I will need either some additional food or something like development of settlement to make that work. I will keep this pact and the medieval army tactic. I discarded the pestilence, maybe a mistake, because now I don't have the option to push. On the other hand, with going for printing presses, I think the pestilence is just a terrible event for me, so I rather kept the naval trade agreement. I also draw the open borders agreement here, which is of course quite a nice draw, and I can then maybe offer this at my next turn to one of my opponents. Then it's PV first turn, he will seed, so now very likely 2 developments will be revealed before my next turn. However, no additional food yet. The development of politics is revealed. That also will give me now the option to seed the development of territory. I could potentially push, but without having any colonization card, with having this pact to offer, probably I won't go for it. PV4 will then build 2 stages of the Stonehenge that will allow him to get out of corruption, and then with his last 2 civil actions he just takes the iron. Can maybe go for that at the next turn. He could have maybe also gone for monarchy, cultural heritage or some stuff, but he rather wants to get this iron going. Angor seeds and the development of science is revealed, so sadly, as you can see, none of those food or population giving developments were revealed. I was a little bit unhappy about it, but now I have to somehow work with those developments that were revealed. That will also mean that the event deck flips now. Angor will increase his population, will go for the knights, builds 1, and then takes the breakthrough. Make sure that he is the strongest. Now it's my turn. I will offer the open borders agreement to PV4. I think I could potentially offer it to both players. Both of them have a 3rd military action at the moment, PV4 from Joan of Arc and Angor from the Colosseum. But I just thought that maybe Angor will go for Nostradamus at his next turn, and then maybe the additional military action will be a little bit more helpful for him than for PV4, and maybe with the additional science from the Stonehenge, PV4 will also go for a government form relatively soon. Maybe then he also gets even an additional military action, so I just felt like maybe it does help Angor a little bit more, but I was still hoping that PV4 would accept it, because he didn't have built any military yet, so I still think he will get some additional draws out of it. So I offer it to PV4. I will also go for Leonardo already this turn, not because I will go for printing presses, now that I don't have additional food. I sadly have only 1 population that I can work with. And with the event deck having flipped, I think I should put this into the knights, especially if I put it into the printing press, then I don't have a way to get out of corruption. And but if I go for knights, then I actually have a way to get out of corruption. So I could potentially keep Aristotle, but I came to the conclusion that I need the additional resources from Leonardo already. I will go for the knight, I will build one, reveal the medieval army tactic, and then I think now there's only one nice way to get out of corruption. Of course, I could maybe also develop a printing press, delete something, build a printing press, but I don't like this too much, and I, to get out of corruption, went for the Universitas and built the first stage of it. And now, thanks to having the one additional resource from Leonardo, I at the next turn could potentially just develop the printing press and finish the Universitas, then with having 6 resources. However, I could potentially also think about just then building one printing press. That also brings me up to 4 science, increases my cultural production by 1 as well. But it could maybe still be nice to have the option to just finish the Universitas. Maybe also make the decision that I rather want to go for the alchemy instead of printing presses. Then I could maybe also take the alchemy, develop it, and then finish Universitas. Or maybe go for alchemy upgrades if it gets me out of corruption. And then I could maybe also still have the option to not go for printing presses, but alchemy instead. Yeah. But like this, I will have a lot of science production going. That will be nice with Leonardo, because then I maybe also can develop a lot of technologies. Maybe it will make it very easy for me to go for a government form, and I was hoping that it will give me a big boost at some point. So I was willing to go for the Universitas, even though I will already get some additional science production from Leonardo. And with going for the medieval army tactic, I make sure that I'm the strongest after my turn. Then I draw one event, the Good Harvest, which is maybe seedable. PV4 doesn't see it, he will go for iron, goes for one, increasing his population and a rich land. He doesn't increase his strength, so maybe there's no strength event on top, but maybe he also didn't have a nice way to increase his strength. Angor will seed them, and one of his Confucius event is revealed, so everyone gains 1 science. He will then take Nostradamus, elect Nostradamus, and then he has just enough resources with the urban growth to just build an alchemy directly, goes up to 3 science production, and yeah, that should be quite nice. And then he also has 1 civil action left that he can use to take the iron. Now it's my turn. I will actually seed the Good Harvest. I'm the strongest, so there might be something nice on top. And with having the printing press, I maybe could use the additional food. It could maybe allow me to get an additional population out, for example. And now I will, if I increase my population, will be at 0 food. Then next turn at 1, and then there should still be H1 at my next turn. Then I will produce 1 last time, then I will be at 2, and with the Good Harvest I will be at 4, and that will be just enough to increase my population 1 more time. So I thought a Good Harvest should be a nice event for me. And there's another Confucius event revealed, so again 1 science for everyone. As you can see, I take the theology here. I have some different options here. I could, as I said, maybe just develop the alchemy, finish Universitas. But I didn't like this too much, because then I don't get this theology if I do it like this. And then, without the theology, I don't have the option to just upgrade this religion, meaning the additional population that I have from not committing a population to the printing press will just be unhappy. But now that I take the theology, I can build 1 printing press, and then I can go for the theology at some point, or maybe in 2 turns, for example, when the H2 will have started, and then I can increase my happy phases. So going for the alchemy, while not, well, it means that I don't commit a worker to printing presses, it still doesn't really give me an additional worker, unless of course I find at some point another way to get some happy phases, but the theologies would be gone, and for the present circuses I also would then need to put the population there. So I rather wanted to go for printing presses, also still with having those culture leaders in mind that I potentially could go for, so I take the theology. I could now just develop printing press or develop theology and finish Universitas, but I at the end rather went for just building 1 printing press, which also gives me +2 science and +1 culture, so the same as the Universitas would give me. And with this play I will increase my population, so for example I am not in danger of getting hit by rats, which could potentially be in there, and I think that already is reason enough to maybe go for the printing press first, but I still will have just enough resources to maybe finish the Universitas at the next turn. I draw some events. I actually draw the reds, so this event is not in the deck. PV4 seeds, and the enslave is revealed, so the 3rd Confucius event in a row. He will then increase his population, actually builds the 4th mine, interestingly, going up to 6 resource production, and then he also goes for the cartography, so he maybe has seeded some colonies in there. Angor pushes with Nostradamus, and there is actually a very strong colony in there, the vast territory. I was willing to bid this army. I think this colony is just so strong that it is worth it to bid an army, even if it maybe would delay my Universitas. But sadly, PV4 is able to win it. He has only one warrior, that means he has some defense cards and wins it for just one warrior. That is definitely very strong. I was a little bit sad that I don't have an aggression in hand, because PV4 and I have the open borders agreement, so he would need another defense card to defend against an aggression from me, which is maybe not that likely. So if I would have an aggression, I probably would go for one, but sadly I don't have this option, and maybe I can then instead cede at my next turn if I want to. Angor goes for the Code of Laws. He has a bunch of signs lying around, especially after, all of the players have a bunch of signs after all of those Confucius events were revealed, so he invests the signs into the Code of Laws. Goes for St. Peter's Basilica, has just enough resources to finish that at the next turn. That will give him quite a bunch of happy faces, and also it synergizes nicely with the happy face that he already has from the Colosseum. Now it's my turn. I could potentially see it, but as you can see, I actually make the decision to not see it, because all of those events are just not too great for me. The border conflict, for that I was not really confident enough that I will actually be the strongest. I don't want to see the territory. I don't really want to see the rats. Maybe it will prevent me from actually getting an additional population out with the good harvest, so that could be annoying. And then the knowledge of the ancients is also not that great, because I have only an H1 wonder and I really don't need the science. I built one stage of the Universitas, and I will also finish the Universitas. The question is, do I want to go for this Code of Laws that is available for 2 civil actions? I could just take and develop it and then finish the Universitas, and then I think that would be quite a nice turn. Thanks to the Universitas, I would go up to 6 science production, meaning that even if I go for the Code of Laws, I would still have enough science to go for an H2 government form. However, there is a problem, and that is that while I have enough science to go for an H2 government form, I also kinda need to go for theology at my next turn, and I would not have enough science to go for an H2 government form and a theology. And so I came to the conclusion that I don't want to invest into the Code of Laws this turn. And what also helped me to make this decision was the fact, or not the fact, but was that I thought that I have good chances to still get it at my next turn, because PV4, after winning the vast territory, has some blue cubes issues, some issues to get out of corruption. He could potentially just take Code of Laws, develop it, maybe finish Stonehenge, but then he would still have corruption. He would miss out on some other cards like Swordsman. And so I thought that he maybe won't go for Code of Laws for 2. Angor already has Code of Laws, and then I maybe can still go for the Code of Laws at the next turn. And then I know if there is actually an H2 government form, a very early one on the row or not. So I was hoping that I maybe still have a chance to go for the Code of Laws at the next turn. And there are also some other interesting cards that I could potentially go for. So I will finish the Universitas. Now I'm at 6 science production, that is quite strong. I will take the Engineering Genius. I think that's a nice card to get for 1 civil action. With my low production at the moment, it's maybe the question if I will go for a wonder at some point, but there's an Ocean Liner, Harvard. Harvard maybe I don't really need, but a statue could be interesting if I get an H2 government form. The railroad maybe also if I go for coal. So I think there are some interesting wonders, especially the Ocean Liner service could be very interesting, because if I then maybe get something like Shakespeare, then that could be a very nice setup. And in order to be prepared for some of those culture leaders, I at the end also made a decision to take the drama. Instead, I could have also already developed the theology, because very likely I will need to go for 1 upgrade at the next turn to not have an uprising issue. But it could maybe also be that 2 events or more are seeded and the good harvest is already revealed. So and then I could potentially also just increase my population. So maybe it's also nice to not commit to it, but I think it's also not bad to commit to it, because very likely I will need it. But I just thought the drama could be quite nice if maybe the coal is late and I can't go for a lot of resource production, but I maybe find a chance to get the Ocean Liner with the Engineering Genius, then maybe that could be also a nice way to play, just going for very, very cheap printing presses and dramas with Shakespeare, and then hopefully with maybe some civil actions from a government form. I then can maybe take some yellow cards in order to try to defend myself, and so that I just thought opens up some more options, especially maybe if I don't get coal going early. I draw 3 cards, 1 colonization card, the immigration, also the legion tactic. PV4 doesn't see it, he goes for the masonry, not for the Code of Laws. He can go for the masonry, then he still has 1 civil action left. He will go for 1 upgrade to his mines and builds a warrior, and like this he gets out of corruption. But that also means that the Code of Laws will be available for me at the next turn. Then H2 starts, Angor seeds and the Barbarians is revealed. It is the event on top. Angor has the most culture, but sadly not one of the two weakest. He won't finish the St. Peter's Basilica. That's probably a very big indicator that there is no rebellion coming. And instead he will just go for 2 iron upgrades and interestingly grabs the swordsman, but maybe there's also not that much else available that would be interesting. I mean, maybe he could build a step already and take frugality or something like this, but yeah, maybe just having the swordsman is not bad. Then at my turn I was interested to see if there will be a very early government form available. But there's no government form available, and with that I can now go for the Code of Laws, because at the next turn now, even if I develop Code of Laws in Theology, I will still have enough science for a government form. So I go for Code of Laws, I go for the Theology, I need this to fix an uprising. I again maybe could have seeded, but again all of those events are not too great. The only new one that I have is the immigration, but Angor will get the St. Peter's Basilica, so I just still thought that all of those events are not too great for me, and I already have a pact, so I don't want to offer the naval trade agreement. I then go for 1 upgrade, and then I have 1 last civil action left. I can't really use anything on my civilization. If I develop the drama, I will have corruption, so I kind of need to take something or skip the civil action, but at the end I thought it is still worth it to take this frugality. I don't want to take any of those government forms, because with them having that much science, I was hoping that I will have a chance to get one. I mean, the other players also don't have an H1 government form, so there will be, the H2 government forms will be somewhat contested, but yeah, I still was willing, especially now with getting the Code of Laws, and with that at least being at 5 civil actions, I was willing to wait for an H2 government form. And if I go for the monarchy, then I also can't really develop it this turn, even though I have enough science, because that would cause corruption, so that also wasn't too great. So I just take the frugality, there will be the good harvest coming, and with that maybe I can use the frugality, and if I then get some additional food production, maybe I can actually make use out of the food and use the frugality. Keep the colonization card and 2 events. I draw a tactic, which is very nice, the classic army tactic. No, that's definitely nice to have, and the immigration is also maybe an event that is seedable, so at the next turn maybe I have the option to seed. PV4 is actually willing to grab the scientific method for 3 civil actions. It's quite costly. He also will have corruption this turn, but I think the scientific method will also be a very great card for him, and maybe the alternatives are also not that great that he has. His strong production anyways, having corruption is maybe not too bad, and then maybe at the next turn he can go for scientific methods and get some very early science production going. If he doesn't take it, then maybe it will be taken away. I could definitely think about it, maybe getting just tons of science production out of Leonardo, and so he just makes sure that he gets it, maybe also that he already has it in hand, so that he at the next turn can just develop it, go for 2 upgrades, and maybe also increase pop or something to get out of corruption. Angor seeds in the foray is revealed. That is very nice. I'm part of that. I'm one of the 2 strongest at the moment. All are on 5, but yeah, I and Angor win the tiebreaker. And then Angor builds or upgrades his last 2 mines. It's now at 8 resource production, also upgrades 1 more lab, so he still doesn't finish the St. Peter's Basilica. Takes the opera. I think he took 1 food with the foray. I think he saw probably that I seeded a good harvest with Nostradamus. Maybe he still had Confucius, but I think that would definitely explain why he goes for this 1 food, because now when he gets 2 food from the good harvest, he has just enough to increase his population. There's an early coal coming down the road, but sadly it will stay on 3 civil actions, and luckily for me there is even a more interesting card available, the Constitutional Monarchy. I will seed this turn, the immigration. Maybe I should be a little bit careful, because I think I don't have knowledge about the Dark Ages, so that could potentially be quite dangerous, and would be quite annoying if it should be revealed. On the other hand, I'm the strongest, so there could be some strength events coming, and with that I was at the end willing to see it. And also Angor, who has Nostradamus, has not really prepared himself nicely for potential Dark Ages. Also PV4 has a lot of science saved up, so I just felt Dark Ages are hopefully not in there. There's no strength event revealed, instead even another Confucius event. And then I will just go for the common. Of course I could also just go for coal and for 1 upgrade, but it actually, now that I also get the stuff from the foray, it doesn't get me out of corruption. And I just think getting the government form is more important, and I can maybe still get a coal at the next turn, because both of my opponents are already on iron. So I go for the Constitutional Monarchy, I could now maybe try to get out of corruption. And actually I will still have maybe a shot to get out of corruption. I took 2 food from the fray to make it that I can increase my population. And then I thought that I also have to take this rifleman, even though it makes it now a little bit awkward with potential corruption. But if I don't take any of those military techs, then both of the cannons will be gone and probably also this first copy of Rifleman, and then there's only 1 copy of Rifleman left. If I should miss out on this, I might have some big issues. I have the classic army tactic, so I just want to make sure that I can go for this tactic at some point, and then I also don't really need the cannons, so I just think I have to take this. And now I could just maybe use the frugality, increase my population, and just accept that I have corruption, and then at least, thanks to the 2 food, I would get another population as soon as the good harvest is revealed, so that would be one option. But at the end I made a decision to actually not use the frugality, because that actually gives me the option to get out of corruption still with building 1 knight, also making sure that I'm not the weakest after my turn, and I have no corruption. That of course sadly means that I don't use the frugality. It also means that now when the good harvest will be revealed, I'm only sitting at 2 food, which is a bit annoying, but there's still a bit of time in H2, and maybe if I get a selective breeding at some point, I can still make use out of the frugality. So I was not too happy about it, and maybe it could be considered to just accept the corruption just to then get another population out. But the thing is, the next population will also be unhappy, so the next population is also not giving me that much, and so at the end I just rather wanted to make sure to get out of corruption. The additional resources might be nice. Maybe allow me to go for quicker coal upgrades, and then the knight, as said, also make sure that I'm the strongest still after my turn and not the weakest. There could have been also Anthony Godi this turn as an interesting leader, but Leonardo is also still doing some nice stuff for me, and I just didn't find a free civil action to go for Godi here. PV4 will go for the cannons, he otherwise would miss out on them completely, and then he just goes for 2 upgrades to scientific method. Like this, sadly he has corruption again, but he also is now sitting at 6 science productions, 14 science saved up, meaning he is prepared to go for a government format the next turn if one should be available. Angor reveals the new deposits. I wasn't too happy to see this, because first of all my opponents of course get a lot more resource out of that, and sadly I would improve it during my next turn, but I mean it's already the middle of this deck, so sadly has to be expected. But I was also a bit unhappy because those additional resources might actually cause some corruption issues at my next turn, or will then at my next turn, so I was a little bit unhappy about this event, but at my next turn then there will again be a switch of plans happening. And then it's not that bad. And it's actually nice, because the additional resource at least allow me to go for 1 more upgrade already the next turn when I develop the coal with Leonardo. But going for 2 upgrades wasn't the original plan before I seeded, because what is also in the row is the ocean liner service, and I just thought this ocean liner service might be really strong. For myself, I have the engineering genius, and with having this setup with dramas and printing presses, getting the population from the ocean liner service might just be very strong. So I thought about just going for coal, developing it, go for 1 upgrade. Because of the new deposits, then I would just not have enough to get out of corruption, but I would accept the corruption. I would still go for this 1 upgrade, accept the corruption, take the ocean liner service. That was 1 turn that I considered. It is really costly having the corruption, not going for 2nd upgrade, not taking any of those yellows, but both of my opponents have have still not fixed their food production, have a lot of resource production, and I think for both of them the ocean liner service would be quite strong to have. So I kind of wanted to deny it, and as I said, it could also be really powerful for myself, with maybe going for something like Shakespeare later on. So that was what I thought I maybe want to do, but I was also not completely certain if it is really best, because instead of having corruption only going for 1 upgrade, as said, I could go for a 2nd upgrade, I could go for some nice yellow cards, so it is really costly to take this ocean liner service. I then made the decision to seed. I'm still the strongest. Immigration is a seedable event. I knew that there is 1 event that maybe could completely or to make it even more costly to go for the ocean liner service. But as I was not completely certain if it is actually worth it, I was leaning towards it, but I was not completely certain. I was still willing to cede, and then there is actually this event revealed. The call to arms will take one civil action away from me, and now I think going for the ocean liner service is maybe a bit too costly. I could still go for it. I could just take the coal in hand, maybe take the ocean liner service, build one step. It could actually still be considered, but that felt at the end just a little bit too costly for me, especially because there is not only the ocean liner service coming down the road, there's also the railroad coming down the road. Then maybe I have a bit of a different civilization, a stronger economy, lots of production, sadly not the most population yet. But I thought this maybe also can lead to a nice position at the end, even though maybe it doesn't prepare me as nicely for Shakespeare. So yeah, so now I just thought maybe it's too costly to take the ocean liner service now that I lost one civil action. At least I got the international trade agreement as a draw, so that might be quite interesting to have. And PV4 is also gets hit quite heavily by the call to arms, because he has now only 2 civil actions, so he won't have a chance to grab the ocean liner service, so very likely Angor will go for it. But I don't know that much about Angor's playstyle, and so I thought maybe there's a chance that he won't take the ocean liner service, but it's just so strong for him, so I didn't expect it to be there at the next turn. But maybe there's a very, very small chance. Maybe there are some other options available for him, and then maybe he ends up not going for the ocean liner. But I really thought that this one will sadly be taken away. But with now having lost one civil action and not even being able to go for one upgrade and grabbing the ocean liner service, I then was not willing to grab the ocean liner service and was thinking that maybe I want to go for the railroad at the next turn. And now, at least I can then go for 2 upgrades to my mines. So now the additional resource from the new deposits are actually quite nice to have, allowing me to go for a second upgrade, and then I will take the efficient upgrade and the revolutionary idea. Can maybe think about Catherine or something, but I thought maybe Shakespeare has still some potential. Maybe Napoleon also has a military potential if I should get a railroad, and maybe I think I already have a war in hand and this classic army tactics, so I didn't want to go for Catherine, and also not at the cost of one of those yellow cards. I keep the war, the tactic, the trade agreement, I even draw another defense card, so I was hoping that maybe there's another colony. PV4 has a really awkward turn, he has only 2 civil actions and he will just build 1 cannon, so that is quite annoying for him. And then Angor cedes, and a good harvest is revealed, so that is the last event. So at my turn when I seeded, I knew that a 50-50 chance is that a good harvest will be revealed. And now it is revealed now, and that will now give Angor the option to get another population. He will go for the Republic, getting a government farm going that works nicely with the Colosseum, and he also will go for the ocean liner service. I just think that's something that he has to do, and then to get, or to not at least have no 4 corruption, he then builds 1 stage of the ocean liner service, can finish it at the next turn. Now it's my turn. I will offer the international trade agreement. I want to get some additional food, because I still think some additional population will be very important. I will actually go for the railroad this turn, and then I might have enough resource anyway, so I rather want to get additional food. And then I gave the additional resource for PV4, because at the moment he has some corruption issues anyway. I thought Angor maybe is the better position now with already having the government farm, with getting the ocean liner service, so I rather gave the additional resource to PV4 here instead of giving it to Angor. I will then go for the railroad, with just nice, I think, to use the engineering genius. I also think it's quite a strong wonder together with the coal. And then I have some different options. I could just go for a coal upgrade, maybe take some stuff, maybe go for the architecture and use that on the railroad. But I thought it could be quite nice to even get a little bit more of science going, as long as I still have Leonardo. So I thought about going for scientific method. But there's also the option to upgrade my printing press to journalism with Leonardo. That also gives me 2 more science production. Also, if I should still end up going for Shakespeare, then maybe it is better now that I have a strong production, being able to maybe build some more journalisms instead of only printing presses. So I thought for that, having a journalism could be nice. On the other hand, I have only 1 printing press at the moment, not the most population. So going for scientific method would mean that I can maybe at some point upgrade the second lab as well. And that could maybe then give me even more science production. Also, there is some lab synergy in H3. So, no, I thought about both of those things. I also thought about maybe I don't even want to go for one of those things, but at the end I made a decision to go for journalism. It was a close one, and one of the points was at the end just that it is available for one civil action cheaper. I think if the scientific method would be available for one, and a journalism for two, I would go for the scientific method, and maybe I also would go for the scientific method if both would be available for one. But now with the journalism being available for one cheaper, I went for the journalism. Developing it gives me one resource with Leonardo. Going for an upgrade puts me at 8 science production, or increases my culture production by a little bit. And then I can also go for one more coal upgrade, just making sure to get a lot of production going. And thanks to the engineering genius, I still have enough resource to finish the railroad at the next turn if I want to. I could also take another copy of Engineering Genius, but I think I have enough resource at the moment, and I rather want to have more civil actions available, because there are still some things that I have to do. I still want to get selective breeding going, I still need a leader, so I think it's more important to already have to spend the civil actions, and that, as said, was also a reason why at the end ended up going for journalism. If I go for scientific method, could basically do the same turn, but I could not use this Engineering Genius, meaning I have less civil actions available at a later point. And then at my next turn, if there's selective breeding available, I think it might just be best to go for that. Maybe I can then still get some value out of the frugality. And if selective breeding is not available, then I can maybe just finish the railroad, get the strength boost, and also get a resource production boost, so that I have just a lot of resources to work with. I then discard all of my cards apart from the defense cards and the tactic, and I draw even 2 more defense cards. So now it would really be great if there would be a colony revealed, because now I could probably win one very easily, and I also draw the Conquistadors tactic. PV4 offers the acceptance of supremacy. I would get less resource production, but I'm not willing to accept that. He also will finally get his government form this turn, goes for the Republic, also takes the Rifleman, increases population 2 times, builds a cannon, and also builds a warrior, and he also reveals the tactic that he has, the defensive army. So now at 14 strength. Now it's Angor's turn, he will seed, and now there are actually the Dark Ages. Everyone got hit by that. I lose a bit more science, but I also have the strongest science production at the moment, so I think that is maybe even good for me. Angor goes for the architecture, uses that to finish the ocean liner service, increases population once normally, and then builds a lab, increases population once with the ocean liner service. And then it takes Napoleon, and a wave isn't willing to elect Napoleon yet, wants to get maybe one more seat with Nostradamus. There's no selective breeding on the row, and so I don't have the option to increase my food production, so instead I just finish the railroad, increasing my strength, making sure that I'm not the weakest, and also I have 12 resource production going now. There's also no leader, Napoleon is now taken away, and meaning that now maybe Shakespeare is just the best for me. I don't have a colony for Cook. I already have my government form, so Robespierre's not doing that much. So at this point it was then my plan to go for Shakespeare, and with the operas already gone, and with I'm not being certain, or with it not being certain if the age will end or not, I thought that I already want to develop this drama. I don't get the Shakespeare discount, but I have a lot of science anyway. I mean, I could still use maybe the science discount, but at least I get one resource production out of Leonardo instead. And then I could just take a bunch of cards, but I still have a lot of things to do at the next turn, with maybe wanting to go for leader and for food production. And so I didn't want to take too many cards. Instead, I just wanted to use already some civil actions and stuff that I have to do at some point. I played a revolutionary idea, developed a rifleman, getting another resource out of Leonardo. As said, the age might end before my next turn. I was trying to maybe get another turn in age 1 so that I get a civil action back, maybe even replacing Leonardo. And also the next turn I will have 4 food, so I can maybe still have a shot to use the frugality. So I was kind of hoping to maybe prolong or not, to make sure that I get one more turn in H2, and so I developed the Rifleman, and then I will take the frugality, just with probably getting Shakespeare, getting as much food as possible might just be best. The food is my weakness at the moment, and it also is in the discard spot, so maybe I have a shot on getting another turn in H2, so that was the card of my choice at the end to take. I will also reveal the Conquistadors tactic. I don't think it helps my opponents a lot. I mean, maybe Angor could profit a little bit from it, but I thought it will just increase my strength by 1, and so I was willing to reveal it, and then I will keep the classic army tactic and 3 defense cards in hand. Sadly, I have to discard 2. And I draw another interesting tactic, the mobile artillery. I mean, I have sadly already developed the rifleman, but maybe that's not too bad. One reason to develop the rifleman, I almost forgot about it, is not only just to get a resource out of Leonardo and to do already stuff that I have to do, those are also reasons, but there's also the arms industry coming. Or is there the arms industry coming? Maybe I'm mixing things up here. I think there is the arms industry coming, but it was not seeded by me, so... I mean, it's then a very small event, it could have been potentially seeded, but I think I didn't seed it. Maybe I'm mixing it up with another game where I seeded the arms industry, but I think the arms industry will be coming, so that's sadly a little bit of a spoiler, but yeah, for that it potentially can be nice. Or maybe I did seed the arms industry and just forgot about it now, but I think I only seeded immigration, or I think I seeded... I don't know it at the moment. We will see. If I seeded it, then of course that was also a big reason. But I mean, I seeded the immigration. Was there another turn when I seeded? Let's take a very quick look, and we can see that here I offered this pact, and here I prepared an event when I call to arms. So I prepared one H2 event. And here I prepared another H2 event. Then I think maybe the other one was the arms industry. Then maybe I actually do remember it correctly from taking a look at the replay before the game. But now let's continue with the game. And yeah, PV4 will go for the statue. He can use the masonry for that. He has a lot of resources. And he does still, I think, 2 copies of selective breeding left. So maybe he has the hope that he gets one of those. On the other hand, Angor maybe could still also want to have one, even though he has the Ocean Liner service. No, but maybe PV4 thinks he will be fine with the additional yellow tokens and also with getting frugality and reserves. With that, maybe he's willing to risk it missing out on a selective breeding. And he also starts with going for an upgrade, maybe just using a military action now while still being in H2. Angor seeds, and there is actually the arms industry on top. I think it was seeded by me. If you really want to know it for certain, you can skip back in the video. And yeah, I gain now 4 additional resources out of it, PV4 as well. Angor gains 2 additional resources, and this turn Angor will make a switch to Napoleon, increases population, takes the breakthrough, the selective breeding, develops the selective breeding, goes for 1 upgrade, builds a religion to have enough happy faces, and will also take the efficient upgrade, with both of my opponents having taken 3 cards from a non-discard spot. Sadly, even though I made it that there were still 10 cards left on PV4's turn, the age will end before my turn, but it's also not too bad, because now Shakespeare will drop down to 1 civil action. If Angor would take 1 less card, and he would stay on 2, so while I would get the civil action back from Leonardo, I mean, maybe I could still get an additional resource out of him when I go for the selective breeding, but it doesn't make the biggest difference now that at least I get Shakespeare for 1 civil action cheaper. And sadly, of course, I don't have the chance now to use this H1 frugality. H3 starts, and I and PV4, but we both lose our leader. And then I will go for Shakespeare. I think it's just the best leader for me. I can take and elect him. I also need his happy face immediately, otherwise I would have some uprising issues. And then I think it's just very, very important to get my food production going, especially with having Shakespeare. Also, I think I have to take it so that PV4 doesn't get it, and I, of course, then would miss out on it. So I think I need to go for the selective breeding here. I want to go for 2 upgrades, so for as many upgrades as possible, as quickly as possible, and I will also use the 1 free military action that I have to upgrade as rifleman, making me even the strongest after my turn. And I will have corruption, but I also have a lot of resource production anyway. The next turn I will be able to get 2 population and can maybe start with building some buildings if I want to. I still wanted to keep both of those tactics as an option, still thought it might be nice, and I was willing to discard a defense card for that, because in this part of the deck PV4 hasn't seeded any event, he also hasn't seeded any event here yet, so he has the cartography, but he just didn't seed any events, so it's maybe not that likely that there is a colony coming. Of course it's still possible. I draw War, and also another colonization card, or Ravages of Time is revealed. I will use the Universitas, but I have some decent science production, so maybe it's not too bad. PV4 will lose a happy face from the Stonehenge, maybe that could be annoying at some point, but it's maybe not annoying immediately. And Angor, I mean, for him it's a bit annoying, losing the Colosseum probably, basically losing 2 happy faces with the St. Peter's Basilica, and also the military action is a bit bad for him to lose. PV4 is willing to take the military theory. At the moment he's only sickening at 2 military actions, so that might be a very important card for him. He's willing to take it for 3 civil actions. He also takes the reserves. He also still needs an H2 leader, and Robespierre's maybe not doing that much for him, so he just goes for James Cook for a little bit of additional culture production. Maybe who knows, there is a colony coming, and then with going for 2 upgrades he will make sure to get out of corruption and also make sure to be the strongest. Angor seeds, and the prosperity is revealed. Luckily for him, he still gets 5 food out of it, because it is revealed before he will destroy the Colosseum from the Ravages of Time. He has no unhappy workers, so he could maybe go for Mandela, but it maybe would also be a little bit risky, because he is already a bit behind in strength. He would then lose Napoleon, he would lose the military action, so maybe because of that he is not willing to do it. Also, there are some nice computers leaders. He gets an early computer, maybe he can go for that at the next turn. Goes for another food upgrade as well, and builds a religion, so after his turn he will have again 5 happy faces. And yeah, so he doesn't go for Mandela, which then maybe leaves me the option to go for Mandela. And now, at my turn I will increase my population. I can't really push, I don't have an event to see it. And there are certainly some different options. I could maybe think about going for computers, also setting myself up for some science leaders. It's already the second copy, so if I don't take it, PV4 might take it. Also Sid Meier's in the row, so he could maybe even go for computers and Sid Meier. On the other hand, I have Shakespeare, so going for labs now just doesn't work that nicely together with it. And there's also a strong leader that I can already take where I don't maybe really need any labs, and it is Mandela, and I also made the decision to pick Mandela this turn. But then there are still some different options. I could maybe just keep Mandela in hand, trying to go for some pairs with Shakespeare and the additional culture reduction. I definitely wanted to get the resource discounts from Shakespeare, so this turn I will build 1 drama for cheaper. I will build 1 journalism for cheaper, and one option that I thought about was to just increase my population and build another drama with a discount with Shakespeare. Then I have to keep Shakespeare, because if I lose his happy face, then I would have an uprising issue. But I then would have 2 pairs, would get a lot of culture reduction out of him, so I think that could be quite interesting. I could now also stop this turn, just take the computers maybe as a hate draft, and also to still maybe allow myself to go for some impact preparation, but it just felt a little bit costly. On the other hand, there is Sid Meier. PV4 is maybe not too happy with James Cook, so maybe I should consider it, but I at this point rather wanted to focus on myself, which I think is also not bad. And yeah, at the end I made a decision that I want to go for Mandela already this turn. It is of course quite nice maybe to get a second pair with Shakespeare, really getting a lot of culture production. But committing another worker into theaters could also be a bit dangerous, because as soon as I lose Shakespeare, I will have maybe some uprising issues, and then I really don't have that many population to put into military, which could still be important to have. So I felt like that is a little bit problematic. And if I don't elect Mandela, I also don't get the civil action, and I think, of course I have already a lot, but 8 instead of 7 can still make a difference. In age 3 I think it is just very nice to have as many civil actions as possible. And yeah, so at the end I made a decision to go for Mandela. That means now I have an uprising issue that I need to fix, and for that I will increase my population and build a theology. So at the moment I don't get any additional culture out of Mandela, so I would have gotten more culture production with Shakespeare, but I get the additional civil action with Mandela. And also what was really actually an important part of going for Mandela is that now with the last civil action I can still take 1 card, and the 1 card is one that maybe is not that strong on the first look, but I think it is actually quite strong for me in this situation, and that is the organized religion. Because as I said, I don't have maybe the most free population, and if I need to build another theology, I definitely might miss this population elsewhere, especially if I need to build up a lot of military. I mean, the next population that I will get will be happy, but then the one afterwards would already be unhappy, and I just think the organized religion, even though I already have theologies, is quite strong here, just allowing me to get more happy phases without requiring new population. I can go for 2 more happy phases without needing to put another population into theaters. And like this, I maybe can also get a Mandela bonus going without needing to put another worker there. And then I also maybe have another worker. If I don't need it for the military, I can put it into journalisms. So I have enough science for organized religion, and I just thought it might be a very helpful technology. And compared to the turn where I keep Shakespeare and go for 2 theaters, I think with this I'm a lot better prepared to or also put workers into military or somewhere else in case it is needed. And I have the 8 civil actions from Mandela, which I think is also quite nice. And then I will draw 1 impact of competition. At this point it's maybe not a little bit uncertain, but maybe at some point I can push it and also draw 2 aggressions. PV4 seats, and the immigration is revealed, but no one has any unhappy workers. PV4 will then go for computers, develops them, and he will go for Sid Meier. So I left him this combination, which maybe could be a mistake, but I also felt like, yeah, I mean, it is definitely strong, but there also is a multimedia, which is maybe a bit problematic for him because he would need to build a new one, but he could also just skip Sid Meier, go for multimedia. So I just was not willing to deny the computers, but it's of course still a nice option for PV4 to just go for those computers. He's now also sitting at 12 culture reduction. Now that we are at the beginning of H3, we can also maybe take a quick look at the overview, and we can see that's actually quite close. The culture scores are very close. All of the players have a somewhat nice economy going. PV4 has no food production, is at the moment sitting only on 2 military actions, but with the military theory he will be able to fix that soon. But yes, it's a bit of an issue for him that he doesn't get any population out. And I just have very strong production, so I was relatively happy about my position, but with both of my opponents maybe going for computers, it could be that maybe both of them see some impacts where science is involved, and then I could maybe score badly in those impacts, like technology, science, or some stuff. I was a little bit worried about that. And Angor has the ocean liner service, so he has the best population situation, and can also go for computers. There's still Bill Gates, Einstein, Marie Curie in the deck, so I think it's relatively equal at this point. Every player has still chances to win, and no. So let's see how the next turns will be going. Angor seeds, and there is now actually a territory revealed. Maybe it was just seeded by PV4, and as you can see, I'm actually willing to bid quite a lot for that. Maybe even too much, because I, with that, have to send a whole army away. That is, of course, quite costly. But I was hoping that I will find some ways to rebuild. I was hoping that I won't be in danger. I still have those defense cards to defend myself. I also was hoping that I can prepare myself to not be in danger of any wars. And maybe it's a bit too costly, but it's also just strong having even more civil actions. I took additional food from that, getting some yellow tokens back into the bank, also synergizes a little bit with Mandela, and I thought that the next turn maybe I can just go for the Manhattan Project, maybe I can just start building some tanks. Like this I'm also maybe nicely prepared for H3 tactics potentially, and so I was hoping that I can still manage. And if I would not have gone for that, I mean, I have 1 free population. I don't think I would have been able to go for a lot stronger turn. I mean, now I have to invest some resource, but I also have some resources, and I just felt having even more civil and military actions could just be quite nice. But maybe it's also a little bit too costly, so I think it might be a little bit too costly. On the other hand, at least to make sure that none of my opponents gets it. Maybe one of those would have been able to win it for a price where it just would be very, very strong to win it, so at least I also deny it, but it's maybe close if it is really worth it to bid that much. Then Angor this turn will go for computers, get some additional science production going. It's now 15 science production already, he takes the patriotism and the military build up, and with that makes sure that he has a lot of resource for the military available. Especially if he switches to a new leader, then he maybe can relatively easily make use out of this wave and the military build up. This turn I could just go for the Manhattan Project, maybe finish it, but there is an issue, and that is that spending 14 resources still doesn't make it easy for me to get out of corruption. And also I just liked it a bit more to go for the tanks, and preparing myself for potential H3 tactics. And also if I now just start with building some tanks, which I will do. And as you can see, even if I increase my population 2 times, if I spend 14 resource now as well for the 2 tanks, I'm still not out of corruption, but now that I have some more civil actions left, I have a way to get out of corruption. I built those 2 tanks. That just leaves me quite flexible. I can still go for the classic army or conquistadors, but I can also, if I should get rockets, still make a switch to mobile artillery, which is the more efficient tactic than the classic army. So I just leave myself open, and if I draw something like shock troops, modern army, mechanized army, I also leave myself open for that. So I just felt it might be the best way to rebuild here. And then I have corruption. I could think about denying the internet. I could also think about just taking the Manhattan Project still to have a way to get more strength. I also could maybe think about denying the internet, because with having Sid Meier and computers, it could be a strong wonder for PV4. But there's also still a space flight left, which could be very strong for him and maybe also better for myself at the end. So I wasn't really willing to do that. It would cause corruption, which is maybe not too bad, but if I have a way to get out of corruption, then it's maybe still nice to do so. And I think I have only one nice way to get out of corruption, and that is with going for the organized religion now. The upgrade just costs 2 resources. With that I have no corruption, and I get 1 more happy face that produces me 1 more culture with Mandela. And then with the last civil actions I take the revolutionary idea. I think that one could be quite important to have. And then I also take the sufficient upgrade. Who knows if I can use it nicely? At least I maybe can use it every time for this. Then at least it's only 2, but better than nothing. But I can maybe also go for upgrades to multimedia or even movies at some point, and then maybe it has the chance to even give me more resources. I miss out in the engineering. But if I want to go for organized religion, then if I won't take it, I would miss out on the revolutionary idea, and then I don't think I have enough science to support it. So at the end, I didn't go for it. I was hoping that I still have enough resource to build some nice stuff with my 12 resource production. I draw 3 cards, and I do draw some impacts. Not the best ones at the moment, but maybe I can do something with them. PV4 saw that I just sent a whole army away for the colony, and maybe wants to try if I have indeed no defense card, but even if I would have sent 2 units away, the defense cards I think would have not been enough, or maybe I could have. Maybe I think I had 2 defense cards, I think, so I could have also no, it would not have been enough, because I not only miss out on a tactic, also from the 1 unit, so I just didn't have a chance to use my defense cards. And like this I can still defend. PV4 after that goes for the military theory, so he probably isn't willing to miss out and draws for that crash and dry. And then he just gets out of corruption with going for those upgrades, has now some nice culture and science production, takes democracy, and the internet is not willing to take the mechanized agriculture. Maybe at this point he's just saying, I rather want to invest into some other stuff, get maybe 1 more population out with the reserves, and then he can maybe be fine with that, or maybe he hopes to still get this one at the next turn. Angor is maybe happy to see that Bill Gates is coming down the row. He also has already 3 computers going on, and Bill Gates will now give him a very big boost. First, the strategic territory will be revealed. This time I can't bid as much, just bid 1 tank and 1 card, and Angor is able to win it. At least he also has to send quite a bunch of units away, but maybe he also uses that for a transition. He is now very low in strength. Goes for the Manhattan Project and finishes that. Goes for Bill Gates, of course, is now at 17 resource production, so he can now really do quite a lot of stuff. And then he also develops the strategy and reveals the fortifications tactic, so he indeed did a transition here. He could have maybe also not gone for the Manhattan Project and then tried to use Wei for military build-up, but the project also gives him 15 culture, so I think it's just a very nice package for him going for this Manhattan Project, even though it maybe could mean that he can't use Wave in military build-up as nicely, but now he maybe has more than enough resource production anyway. Now it's my turn. I don't really want to see it. None of those impacts are really nice for me at this point. I will take the air forces because Angor, luckily both fundamentalism and communism will be gone. Like this, he can't easily go for a lot of military actions, maybe for the 2nd copy of military theory, which I think is still in there. But with having all of those resources and with having this tactic, he could have some military potential. PV4 doesn't have the most population, but if he has a strong H3 tactic, he also could have some military potential. So I think to be safe, I kinda need the air forces here. I then increase my population, play the revolutionary idea, develop the air force because I don't want to commit to another tank, because that would maybe be too much. I don't really need it for any of those tactics. I don't need it for mechanized army, for modern armies, so I rather wanted to invest into 1 air force. I want to get stronger, I don't want to be vulnerable to an aggression, so for that I need the air forces as well. After building 1 I'm still not out of corruption, But again, those religions come in handy. I can again spend 2 resources, I get a bit more of Mandela's bonus, and then get out of corruption, and then with my last 2 civil actions I take the urban growth and the engineering genius. I thought about also the revolutionary idea, but I thought I have enough science to maybe go for something like rockets at the next turn, and hopefully I was thinking I have enough science, but the science definitely also might be useful, but having a lot of resources to work with to maybe go for some upgrades to movies or multimedias at the end could also be quite strong, and so I rather took 9 resources than having the option to use another civil action to only gain 6 science. But maybe the science could also be quite nice. Maybe if I get rockets and military theory, I could potentially even still think about going for a war. But for that, maybe I don't have the most population. I mean, I have some labs that I can delete, so it could potentially be an option. But my opponents also have a lot of resource to work with. Maybe PV4 if he's not careful, but he can always maybe just easily throw in some H3 tactics. So I didn't really think that a war could be a nice option, and I actually also discarded the one war that I had already. But I draw another one, also the Impact of Wonders, which sadly is not really a great impact for me. PV4 offers the international tourism to me, and yeah, he will probably get a little bit of more culture out of it, but I was still willing to accept it because there's still a little bit of time left, and then I also get hopefully a relatively nice amount out of this pact. PV4 goes for the civil service, that gives him a nice boost to the civil actions, also maybe helps him with corruption, plays the reserves for food, increases population, builds 1 more rifleman, making sure to get stronger, also gets out of corruption, takes a revolutionary idea and a pro sports and an efficient upgrade. And is even willing to skip this copy of mechanized agriculture, interestingly. But there's a second one still coming. Angor seeds, and the National Bride is revealed. Luckily no strength event, but this of course also gives Angor some additional culture. Was it close? He had 91 before that, relatively close but not that close. He has a lot of science and will go for democracy this turn, has also a bit of more military actions now, so that's of course also a way to get more military action for him, the democracy. Then he will just start building some operas, goes up to 15 culture production, and also builds a cannon going up to 31 strength. It takes satellites, revolutionary idea, and reserves. So he has now can just build a lot of stuff with the gates production that he is going on. I mean, he has just tons of production now. I this turn see the impact of competition, because I will actually build 1 rocket this turn. I need to follow up with the strength a bit, and at the moment I just have the best competition. Angor has only 2 cannons. PV4 has also a fine competition, and maybe he will go for pro sports, but he also doesn't have the most population, so I was hoping that it hopefully will be a nice one against Angor, unless he all of a sudden starts to build a lot of units, and hopefully it will at least somewhat be equal against PV4, and I also just wanted to start getting some impacts in, and hopefully it will at least be a strong one against Angor. The freedom of movement is revealed. I will use it to put an HA lab into journalism, getting more culture and science production, and then as said this turn I will go for rockets. I can increase my population, build 1, reveal the mobile artillery tactic, and going up to 35 strength so that I'm not the weakest. I still get 3 draws going, and then I have some civil actions left, and I will use those to first of all destroy even a lab, to build another theater with the urban growth for free. It gives me 2 culture production, but also 1 more happy phase. Now I have full happy phases, so basically 3 culture production, and I have to destroy the lab, which could be bad for variety, and also potentially for the United Nations, if that should be the wonder that I go for at the end, but it also just gives me 3 culture production already, so I was willing to go for that. And then I have some civil actions left. I take multimedia, I take the urban growth, and I take the patriotism. I could also think about the reserves, and it could maybe be nice because I can play those for food. So I'm not sure, maybe I should have taken the reserves. I definitely thought about this, but I don't remember it exactly. I mean, it depends, at this point it depends if PV4 makes the decision to NDH or not, and I thought he might NDH, because Angor can maybe do a lot of stuff with the gates production. On the other hand, the internet of PV4 maybe gets bigger as the longer the game goes on. If he feels safe from the military pressure, he might also just prolong the game. But in case the age does end, then the Urban Growth, with not requiring another civil action to get use out of it, might just be the better card for me. And then maybe I can get something like United Nations or potentially Spaceflight, finish it, and then maybe still develop multimedia, go for some upgrades or some stuff, especially if I should get United Nations. And then the reserves might be not as great if the game goes on. Then maybe it could be nice to have the option to increase my population, but it would also cost 1 culture Mandela, and maybe I still find some stuff to do, for example going for a multimedia upgrade. And even if the age doesn't end, I maybe still want to grab a wonder that will require some civil actions, so maybe the Urban Growth is at the end the right pick. And I also went for the patriotism, and because I just felt having a bit more resource for the military might be nice. I still don't have enough for 3 units, but I mean I have enough for 1 rocket and 1 air force. I was hoping that it will be enough. I think if PV4 goes for a war with 2 air forces, it could already get a little bit dangerous. I think he would have some chances to win the war, but he also would have to destroy some stuff. He wouldn't prepare for his internet, so I was hoping that it will be too costly for him at the end. And also maybe there's always the danger for him that there's a helpful event coming, so I was hoping that he won't go for that, but it's a little bit of a risk that I have at the moment. I draw 3 cards, sadly no impact that I can play, at least one that is very bad for me, so it's nice to have knowledge that it is not in the deck, the impact of progress. Also I have a modern army tactic now, but I don't know, are there any modern infantries left? No, so the only H3 tactic at the moment that would be nice for me would be a mechanized army, PV4 seats, and there's a strength event on top, so it was nice for me that it wasn't revealed when I seated at my turn, and PV4 will take 3 resources from Angor, wants to have as many resources as possible, and also he doesn't go for a war, which I think probably makes sense. He will go for the democracy, takes the mechanized agriculture, will also go for that. I think he used the freedom of movement to put the 1 HA farm somewhere, and now to fix famine he will go for mechanized agriculture. He will also build another lab, has now 24 culture production, so that's quite a lot. Place the reserves for food before he will lose it to the end of the age. Takes both of those reserves, and as you can see at the end he doesn't end the age and wants to have another turn. I mean, with having that much production and with maybe making the internet potentially even bigger, that of course makes some sense. But Angor maybe can also do a lot of stuff. Has some population, so let's see what he will be able to do. But he has less production, so I think it definitely makes sense for PV4 to prolong the game here. Angor will seed, and my impact is revealed, the impact of competition, so I gain now +8 against Angor, and the same as PV4, so that impact worked relatively well at the end. Angor put something into the alchemy and iron, interestingly not into computers directly, but the reason for that is that he just wants to finish the United Nations this turn, and then can evaluate an impact, which is the impact of happiness, which is nice for me because I gain the same as Angor, but I gain 12 more than PV4, even though at this point I felt like PV4 with getting a really big internet might be relatively difficult to catch up on, especially because I don't really have any very strong impacts for myself in hand. Angor then builds another warrior, maybe there's impact of variety coming, but it also got him out of corruption. Like this he could potentially take and finish the space flight at the next turn, but he doesn't have enough resource for the Empire State Building, and I might take the space flight away, so he might not be able to go for Wonder the next turn, and maybe then he can build some urban buildings or some stuff. At my turn I will go for Disarmed Intervention. I have not really an impact that I want to seed at the moment. Wonders and progress are definitely bad. Culture could still be considered at the next turn if I come to the conclusion that I don't have good chances to catch up to PV4 anyway, and if I want to have +7 against Angor, which might be possible, but I don't want to commit to this yet. And so I just go for Disarmed Intervention, making it that Angor has to discard 3 cards, who knows. Maybe PV4 also doesn't have something nice to do, goes for another aggression, and then Angor maybe already has a bit of an issue with his military cards and has then to prepare this next turn for even more aggressions, but probably it doesn't make a big difference for him. I don't really want to go for the space flight, it's just the best wonder for me, and I also take it away from Angor like this, but also just it being the strongest move for myself is reason enough, of course, and so I take it. I then take the endowment, that has the chance to give me 6 culture at my next turn, so that's also very nice to have. And then I just go for the multimedia, go for one upgrade for 3 with the efficient upgrade and take the bro spouts, because thanks to getting this one additional science, I have now enough science to go for another technology at the next turn, getting 3 more out of the space flights. At the next turn I can develop bro spouts, play the endowment, finish the space flight, and I still have 3 civil actions left to maybe do some stuff, either going for more upgrades, or maybe I'm also willing to destroy something in order to build something else. So I definitely have the option to do some different stuff here. This turn I also have a lot of resource saved up, so I was hoping that there is at this turn definitely no danger, especially with the off forces gone, that there will be a war. And no, so the next turn I get a relatively big space flight. The moment I'm behind Angor, he will also get the Bill Gates bonus, but he will get no wonder at his last turn. Sadly, I don't draw any new cards, so at the next turn the only impact that I maybe could push is the impact of culture. PV4 seeds and the impact of variety is revealed, giving Angor plus 16, so the warrior indeed pays off. I gain plus 14, PV4 plus 16, so relatively close. PV4 then will increase his population, goes for the bro sports, builds one, takes the movies, takes the oil, interestingly develops the oil. Maybe it's the easiest way for him to get out of corruption, but it's definitely interesting and might be indicating that an impact of industry might be coming. Otherwise, maybe he could have done something else. And then he also builds 2 stages of the internet with the masonry. And maybe that even would have been already enough to get out of corruption. So that could definitely be a big indicator towards impact of industry. Angor seeds, the impact of architecture is revealed. That one is also relatively similar, 14 for Angor, 13 for me, 15 for PV4. Angor probably will make that a little bit bigger this turn. First of all, he will play the military build-up for 10 resources. Like this he can build 2 cannons for 3, going up to 43. Then develops the satellites. Luckily I know that impact of progress is not in there. He builds 1 theater, increases his population, and that is now very interesting, he builds a 3rd farm for 6 resource. For 6 resource he could have also built another opera. He has the the open building limit for it with the democracy. So I think that's also a big indicator that he instead builds this farm here, and it's really looking like impact of balance might be in there, because now he has really strong balance. Or maybe it's impact of agriculture, then it basically would be the same, only that the impact of architecture is out, and maybe the impact of and if the agriculture is in, then maybe that just prepares him also for balance. But I was really thinking balance might be coming, or maybe if not agriculture, otherwise that just doesn't make a lot of sense, unless maybe Angor hopes to get the right impacts. And with his last civil actions he then just goes for the military theory. He's now also very strong, so I was also a bit afraid that maybe impact of strength could be in there. At my turn I did some calculations and I came to the conclusion that there is indeed not really any way how I saw myself overtaking PV4. And so, but I still thought I have chances to finish before Angor, and with that I seeded impact of culture in. It will be best for PV4, but I will gain 7 more than Angor out of this, even if I don't invest into more culture reduction. And so at my turn I seed the impact of culture. And impact of science is revealed. That is sadly not really a great one for me. And my fear from earlier with skipping the computers and then maybe some nice science impacts being in there for my opponents comes a little bit true here, and it gives Angor plus 14. I only gain a 0, so I was definitely not happy about it, but there was also nothing that I could do about this impact at this point. I play the endowment for 6 culture, I go for the 1 technology, I finish the spaceflight, all of those things I think I have to do for certain, and I mean it's quite a nice spaceflight for 32 points. And then I have some civil actions left. I did consider just destroying maybe 2 mines and then playing patriotism, or I don't even have to play patriotism. It's actually better to not do it, and then I could build for 14 resource 2 units and then use the urban growth for 1 more upgrade to multimedia, and then it would actually be the strongest, so that would be the right move if I suspect that impact of strength is in there. On the other hand, Angor revealed the impact of happiness with the United Nations, so maybe that is actually the impact that he seeded at the last turn. Maybe he just, I mean, the 2 cannons he got anyway, because he had the military build-up that he could play, so it also prepares him for harmony. So I think him getting stronger also makes sense without the impact of strength, and maybe he also was just hoping that maybe impact of strength was seeded by someone else, so it could be in there, but the indicators are not that big that I could, for example, say that it is in there for certain, and I actually thought that the indicators towards impact of agriculture and balance and towards impact of industry are bigger than for impact of strength. and so I also at the end played towards those impacts. I was not willing to destroy 2 mines, that would be quite costly for Impact of Industry, and so I at the end even destroyed a tank. And that is certainly somewhat risky, because I now can't defend against an aggression from PV4. So that is definitely dangerous. Maybe PV4 doesn't have anything else to do with this last politics phase. I was hoping that if he has a nice impact, and there are quite a bunch of impacts that could be quite strong for him, that then he rather wants to seed and trying an aggression, because me just being willing to delete this unit could maybe be a big indicator that I can defend myself, that I have the necessary 2 defense cards in hand. It's maybe a bit risky, but before that I thought that I maybe want to destroy 1 mine, build 1 farm and go for 1 upgrade. But now that I don't need a civil actions, I can build a farm and can go for 2 upgrades, and I keep the mine, and as I said, I thought that Impact of Industry might be in there. And also, now that Impact of Science was revealed, and Angor will get a big Bill Gates bonus, and I don't have the biggest impacts there myself. I mean, at least the Impact of Culture will give me +7 against Angor. I was thinking maybe I have to take some risks here in order to still finish before Angor. Maybe I just have to go for destroying the tanks. However, destroying the mine and building the farm would have had 1 advantage, that my Impact of Balance would, the Impact of Harmony would be a little bit better. So that would also be 1 reason to maybe destroy the farm, but I would get 1 less safe culture because I don't get this upgrade in, and also the Impact of Industry might be in there, and I thought it's more likely that it is in there, and so at the end I was willing to take the risk. Maybe PV4 will just ride on aggression because he doesn't have anything else to do, then it of course heavily backfires, but I also thought I maybe have to take some risks to still have chances to finish before Angor. And so I was willing to build this additional farm, preparing me for agriculture and balance, and then I just go for those 2 upgrades. Now I was really much hoping that there is no aggression from PV4, and I don't get punished for it. And there is actually the Impact of Industry on top, that gives me now +6, so the Impact of Industry is also an impact that is nice against Angor, which was another reason why I wanted to stay prepared for that impact, to have another nice impact. And now I have actually a bit of a lead, but we shouldn't forget that Angor will get the Bill Gates bonus, so with that we are basically equal at the moment. And then I have 1 +7 impact against him, and the other impacts will then decide if I can stay ahead of him or if he will overtake me. PV4 develops the movies, and then builds 1, finishes the internet for 38 culture, so that's quite a nice internet. And then the final culture before the impact evaluation is that, as said, Angor is 10 culture behind me, but when we take a look at the civilization, the Bill Gates bonus will be +10, so we are basically at the same amount of culture at the moment. And then PV4 has a 21 culture lead before both of us, and he is just prepared for quite a lot of impacts quite nicely as well. So I didn't, at my turn, I thought that I don't really have good chances to finish before him. Alright, then let's take a look at the final impacts, and the first one will be the Impact of Harmony, so sadly that one is in there, and now I only get +12 out of it, Angor +20, so he is also already only 2 culture behind me, or if we already take the Bill Gates bonus into account, 8 culture ahead of me. Impact of Colonies at least doesn't change anything, so a neutral impact. There is the Impact of Technology, broadly seeded by PV4, it gives him +32, +20 for myself, +16 for Angor, so that gives me +4 against Angor. He had a lot of science production, but maybe didn't find the civil actions to develop that many H3 techs, also developed the democracy, which costs a lot of science, so I'm actually have +4 in against him in this one. There is the Impact of Culture, that one was seeded by me. I have now a bit of a lead before Angor. The question is now, what is the last impact? I don't have knowledge about this one, and it is the Impact of Agriculture. That gives me +13, Angor +13 as well, and with that I, at the end, even with the Bill Gates bonus, am able to stay ahead of Angor with the 3 culture lead. So that one was really close, and I of course at the end was very happy that I managed to at least finish at the 2nd place in this game. So quite a close finish with some different impacts. Angor definitely could have had some chances to win. I didn't draw that many nice impacts for myself, but at least I had some where I knew that those are not in there, progress would have been really a disaster, and it could have been potentially seeded by both of my opponents. So I think that was actually quite nice to draw by myself. And no, it was a game where I went for printing press relatively early, which I don't do that often, but I had a lot of science production to work with, and then I actually upgraded to journalisms and also to multimedia later on, so a lot of library stuff going on in this game. Yeah, and then I just built up a very strong coal economy with railroad. And maybe without a call to arms, if there would be the good harvest revealed, then I think I maybe would go for the ocean liner service. Who knows if that would work better or worse. Angor then would not be able to get the ocean liner service. I would probably have more population to work with, but I think the railroad play also worked out relatively nicely for me. I then got this early Mandela, still got a little bit of value out of Shakespeare with saving some resources. And then I just had a relatively strong economy going, but the economies of the other players also were quite strong. Both of them got early computers. PV4 then got Sid Meier and internet, which is a nice combination. And Angor got Bill Gates. And and then all of the players, I think, had some nice stuff going on. And PV4 with the big internet and the big culture production at the end was able to win this game. Alright, and now with another game finished, we can take a look at the current standings. And with the result of this game, it is actually guaranteed now that I will move on to the next stage. I'm at 20 points now, and both Angor and Swin have 2 games left, a 2-player game and a 3-player game, so both of them only can score 9 points. However, the first place is not completely secured yet. If I should lose all of my games and Angor wins the last 2 games, then we would both be at 20, and then Angor, I think, would win the tiebreaker. So the first place isn't completely secured, but I have very, very good chances, I think, to finish first place at this point. But I definitely will move on to the next stage, so I'm very happy about it. The game so far in this stage definitely went quite nicely for me. And so I think I will very likely finish at the first place, but between the 3 of the opponents for the second position, it actually is still very, very close, especially also with the result that we have just seen. PV4, it was his last game, but he managed to win this game, and with that make sure that he still has chances to move on to the next stage. He's now at 16 points, and Angor and Swin are at 11 and 10. Both of them have 2 games left. PV4 is now a little bit dependent on my performance in the last 3 games. If I should manage to get some nice results and finish before Angor and Swin very often, then he can still move on. But Angor and Swin, if they should manage to get some nice results out of the last 2 games, then both of them also still have chances to finish at the second place. So all of my opponents still have chances for the second position. So that is relatively exciting. And I, of course, am happy that at this point I have guaranteed to move on to the next stage. Then I hope it was an interesting game for you to watch. I hope you're looking for the next ones to come. And then thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.